Welcome to the India Fintech Diaries, the only podcast focused exclusively on the Indian fintech market. I'm Elroy.
And I'm Hemant. In each episode, we dive into the latest trends, ideas, innovations, business models, and personalities that are shaping India's fintech landscape.
We also invite amazing guests who are innovators and industry players that are driving the change that is helping make financial services more modern, innovative, and inclusive in India. Come join us as we explore the changing landscape of fintech in India.
Welcome back to India Fintech Diaries, the show where we discuss all things Indian fintech. I'm your host Hemant.
And I'm your host, Elroy. In the last episode, we explored the world of buyer apps with Spice Money. Today, we're exploring the world of ONDC again by looking at another pioneering company in this space, eSamudaay. Join me in welcoming Medarisha Lyngdoh, co-founder and COO at eSamudaay. Welcome to India Fintech Diaries, Meda.
Thank you, Elroy.
Also joining us is Ravinder Singh Mahori, co-founder and CTO at eSamudaay. Welcome to India Fintech Diaries, Ravinder.
Thank you.
Meda and Ravinder, it'll be great to get a quick overview of your backgrounds. Tell us a little bit about yourselves. Meda, maybe you can go first.
Sure. So, I'm primarily born and brought up in Shillong. So, I've done most of my education there itself. I do my bachelor's in computers there, and then uh, finally did my master's in Banaras Hindu University. Post that, I've been working with multiple companies in the fintech domain and primarily data analytics space also. So it was, around 17 years that I've been working in the financial space. And then in 2020 is when I decided, let's try a new industry. And with COVID having struck, and we were all working from home, and then Anup called up, who was CEO for eSamudaay, and said, "Hey, why don't we work on this idea that I have, and why don't you join us?" And Ravinder and Anup were already together. So then I got a call around March saying that, would you like to, form this company with us and work with us and see how to take this forward, because this is the need of the hour. And we'll talk about it a little again. But at that point of time, life was changing, and then I was like, why not do something that's totally drastically different from what I've been doing currently? So then jump into commerce space, and from 2020 up till now, I've been with eSamudaay, and it has been an interesting journey. And that's it. That's it about me in a nutshell.
Ravinder, over to you.
Yeah, so I was born in Uttaranchal. Pretty early, I moved to Delhi. My parents moved to Delhi. I moved with them. I had all my schooling here. Mostly went to Kendriya Vidyalayas. Then I went to NIT Karnataka Suratkal for my engineering, where in 2011 I graduated from there, and I graduated in electrical engineering, and then for next 6 years I primarily worked in deep tech, where I was working on wireless communication protocols, etc. And then 6 years into that, I walked out of corporate, started my own company, and initially it was about kuch karna hai. There was not a lot of clarity on what needs to be done, and then over time I figured that what was exciting for me was how to use all this tech that is getting built around us for small and medium businesses, right? And that was exactly what my first venture was. I ran it for around 3.5 years. Then at the same time, I met Anup, who is the CEO at eSamudaay, right? And he was my one of the angel investor at my previous company as well. And we talked about how the marketplaces for smaller towns can be built, and this is because Anup and I worked a little bit together on another company from some juniors of my college, NIT Suratkal, and as part of that, we saw firsthand how a closed community marketplace was working really really well in those campuses. We said, hey, something like this sort can be done in communities, but not in campuses, but in smaller towns. And yeah, that's how eSamudaay got started, and now I'm with eSamudaay for last 3 years as a co-founder and CTO.
Pretty interesting, Ravinder. And it is always great to talk to a fellow KV person who's doing great in life. So I've also done all my education from Kendriya Vidyalaya. So fantastic. So moving on, Ravinder and Meda, India's e-commerce market size today is estimated to be around USD 75 billion about in 2022, and has seen tremendous growth and adoption with more than 60% of transactions and orders in India coming from tier 2 cities and smaller towns. So it has just reached every nook and corner of the country. In fact, I read one stat where it said that Amazon covers, say, 98% of all pin codes in the country. But even then, today it remains centralized and primarily dominated by very few players. So, can you tell us about what are the sort of problems that you saw in the current state of things, and what led to this thought of creating eSamudaay and the problem that you're trying to solve?
So, first thing, right? We all know, as you said, there's a huge spike of online transactions that has happened, and primarily Amazon and maybe Flipkart would have also contributed to that. And that sort of brought a lot of benefit, especially for a tier 4 city, because before online, I mean, because I come from a tier 4 city, right? Before online, options are very limited, and price discovery, I mean, sitting there, you don't really know what's the price of a product. All you know is
Mhm.
what they're displaying in the shop, right?
Right.
So with online coming, it sort of expanded. Hey, the same product I'm seeing, what is being sold here at 1,000 rupees, is you can easily get it at 500 rupees. So why should I go to a local guy and buy from him when I can get more choices and more thing from an online market? Of course, and that sort of benefited the people. More variety, more choice, pricing is a little more competitive, and then comes, but of course, with the whole thing of online coming in, there is a sort of uniformity that comes with it, right? It's only out of thousands of product, 10, 15, 20 products are being used, the rest of them are not really being marketed well, and then uh, we lose that originality as a place, because I was using a local product before. Let's take an example, a local knife, and now everybody seems to be using some China made product. While that is good in a way because you're getting more option, but then what do I do with the local product? I mean, isn't I mean, there are artisans dying. There are the markets are reduced, and online centralized markets have come in, but the local markets have not gone out. If you understand what I'm trying to say,
Right.
Mhm.
their market share have reduced, while the centralized player have improved their market share. So in that, there's no equitable economy out here, right? So now I'm killing the small guy, and this big guy is growing. So at the end of the day, I mean, what I personally feel, at the end of the day, whether I go to Shillong, whether I go to Delhi, whether I go to Bangalore, I'm going to see the same shops, I'm going to see the same products. There is absolutely no variety that is going to be there. That is one problem, right? But and then second problem is, let's take the example of a Swiggy. All in the, I mean, just to simplify it extensively, all they do is deliver food from shop to consumer, hyper local, that also, right? Now there is a team, say in Bangalore, sitting directing customer care and doing all of that, directing market that is there in Srinagar. Let's take an example. So
Right.
there are local apps that people are saying that, hey, this is a simple business model. All I'm doing is pick product from here, deliver it to this house within a radius of 10-15 kilometers. Why do I need a centralized player to come in and disrupt everything when, and then I can do it very well here, and I can also, I mean, I know the place, I know the people, I know the kind of mood that happens, I know how to talk to my customers, I know how to deal, I know where to get better products. Why do I need a central player to come in? So these apps start sprouting in, right? And then they start, but of course they can't compete with a centralized player in the kind of marketing, the kind of um, tech stability that a centralized player would have brought in, with the kind of tech
Right.
capability that they have. So again, it's sort of a losing game for them. So what we as Isamudaay, we are saying, right, for something that happens in Srinagar or within Shillong, why do I need a company in Bangalore to do that? But I understand that technology is expensive. Getting people to build from scratch is going to be expensive. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to provide the technology. All they need to do is manage the operations piece of it. So then it's like renting real estate instead of buying the real estate, right?
Right.
Because I've personally met friends in Shillong who say, "Hey, I want to build an app to do this, but this guy is charging me 15 lakhs." And after they've given 15 lakhs, all they get is a Dabba app which doesn't work at all. But they've lost that 15 lakhs. And they haven't, I mean, they're just shops that come up here and there, right? There's no maturity, there's no process development, there is no UX, UI for those teams. So there is no way they can compete. So what we're saying is let's ease the technology challenge for small players to get into the business. And then slowly, once we have sort of introduced that, then how do I get local produce or local artisans to expand their market? I have to build a capability for these smaller nodes to start interacting with each other. So a network economy sort of that comes at play. This is of course not yet there at eSamudaay right now, but the idea is when I've established these nodes in each location, then I get these nodes to talk to each other, and then I have the ability to get a product that is being developed in Shillong to a person that is in Bangalore, which right now does not really happen. There are a few products here and there in Amazon, but there is nothing like a local guy saying, "Hey, these are the products from my hometown. These are really good." Any personal referral, nothing beats personal referral. And I think Ravinder can testify to that because when we had our annual meet in Shillong, and I think after they all tasted the turmeric that was sort of manufactured and farmed there. I don't think Ravinder, you want to go back to any other turmeric. But that would have not happened if a local person was not there. So why don't I harp on that intelligence and give the ability for local producers to then expand their market across the country and across the globe in the longer run? So that are the two problems that we sort of wanted to attack. And Ravinder, if you want to add more.
Actually, more than the problem, Ravinder, because I get the problem, but I was also trying to read through the content that you already have online and understand the overall concept of eSamudaay. So I see that there's a concept of pyramid, there's a concept of circles, there's a concept of network economy, community, and also something called district digital economy. If you can just, Ravinder, help us understand through the lens of one, the buyer who wants to get access to these more localized products across the country, and also from this local producer of that product who wants to sell, and help us understand how exactly this entire thing comes together and work.
Yeah, sure, I'll do that. And thanks, Meda. Was That was very well summarized, right? And before I talk about the specifics of how eSamudaay sees the world, I'll just spend
Mhm.
a few minutes on problem statement for the
Sure.
context. Right?
Sure.
The origin of eSamudaay, and maybe later we'll talk about, is very, uh, and also the origin of ONDC, right? Both of them are anchored into trying to do good for the producers, right? So in India today, both e-commerce and hyperlocal commerce, it's actually there is not enough problem for buyers. I mean, there are problems that Meda talked about, and there are people, caring for that. But in general, people are very happy. People are, getting things for zero delivery fee. In 10 minutes
Mm.
they are able to order whatever to all the pin codes of India. So buyers in general are having a very very good time, but at the expense of the producers, right? Both in case of e-commerce, while the reach is there, but how many sellers are actually selling on Amazon, right? It's all those very large seller, and some of them are, or rather majority of those large ones are Amazon's own thing, right? They are the ones selling everything. The small sellers are not really. Yeah, it is possible for them to get listed on Amazon, but is it really happening? Not much. Similarly, a hyperlocal scene, it's very difficult, right? The restaurants, etc., are cooking and selling, but the margins are not there, etc. So, and this is a known problem. These tensions are known, publicly documented, all of. But if you look at now the incentive structure, right? So the marketplace has a very clear incentive of increasing the number of transactions and then getting more commissions out of that, right? As simple as that. And that comes by mass production, by having a very large warehouse, shipping everything from there and stuff like that, right?
Mm.
Which is not very well aligned with small sellers, small producers everywhere trying to do business instead of being killed or getting killed by large companies, right? And this is the problem statement that eSamudaay started with, that hey, we need to solve this, right? So obviously the consumers will continue to want good service, the consumers will want continue to want access through online, and it's going to increase. But can we figure out a way to do this not at the expense of producers, but rather have a marketplace which is inherently by design good for the world? It's good for the producers as well as good for the consumer, right? This is the problem statement, and this is what we say when we say move from pyramid to circular economy. What we say is, hey, if you have a large company, let's say selling, sitting headquartered at Bangalore or Seattle or wherever, they will continue to have this goal of trying to increase the number of transaction, trying to increase the number of the margin commission on each transaction, and they will eventually move back to what currently is happening. But if there are these local marketplaces run by local people for the local community at each place, right? Then what happens? Then this marketplace is for that community, and by design, they will not try to kill the local market. They will have to rather work well with the producers, because that is the market, right? That is the market. Of course, this is not going to be $1 billion company or $1 trillion company, but this will be a company that will be profitable because it is connecting buyers and sellers and doing getting some commission in between. At the same time, it is not gonna kill the producers there and go to some very large producer somewhere else, because hey, it's built for that local community, right? This is what pyramid to circle is, where instead of one large entity doing everything for everyone, can you have circular economy where these are local digital marketplaces being run by local people, one for each community. And DISDECO is acronym for District Digital Economy. So we say, so what is the boundary of this local marketplace, right? Does it have to be one per state? Does it have to be one per city? Does it have to be one per street? And we said, hey, a good place to start this would be one per district. So India has, let's say, around 700 districts. So we see a future where there will be local marketplaces, one in each district, that will connect all the local buyers. So it may be headquartered at the district headquarter, and from there it will connect to even the talukas and gram panchayat and all of it, right? And this
Mm.
way we have a marketplace which will work well for the buyers as well as for the producers, and there will not be one but many of such marketplaces, one for each district. Yeah.
And if I have to picturize this, Ravinder, for example, say Hemant is natively from, say, Satara in Maharashtra, which is one district. And for Satara, I want to set up a marketplace. So I will come to, say, eSamudaay, and eSamudaay supplies me with the technology and the nodes which are connected to ONDC network and other providers like logistic provider or anything. And I bring, or maybe I bring logistic provider for Satara specifically on this, and also producers of these people. And the tech that I use comes from eSamudaay. Is our understanding of what you just said correct?
Yeah, this is perfect. This is correct. Yeah.
Then, Ravinder, then this means there will be a lot of work being done to onboard a particular district, find a person who is going to operate in that district, and launching this, because we say India is one country, but we are not a homogeneous market like, say, Europe, and every district is very different. So you did your first circle in Udupi, then you also are operating a circle in Shillong. Talk to us about the challenges with launching circles like this in different districts on the ground.
Yeah, the main problem that we solve is finding these people, right? So these are
Mm.
entrepreneurs, and in last 2.5 years, 3 year, majority of our learning has been primarily around who are these people who will be successful in running these marketplaces, where do we find them, is it a person, is it a team, and all those things, right? And Udupi was, of course, the first place and little easy for us to set up, because Anup Pai, who is the CEO, Ravi Haldipur, who is the chief business officer, they come from there. I also went to NIT Surathkal, so it's very near to
Mm.
Udupi. So I also have, let's say, some connects, or at least some connects in that location. So hence that place was chosen. But in general, we started with thinking this person could be somebody who went back home during COVID and now is a techie who wants to stay at home, work from there, and can do this. Then we realized, hey, it cannot be just one person, it's actually a team of people. Then we said, hey, it's a team, but you need people who have local connects. But that is not enough. You also need people who understand technology, because while we are providing tech, but some a team where there is absolutely no understanding of technology may not be able to work, right? So you are
True.
absolutely right. This was the key problem statement that we faced, and a lot of learning came around this. At this point of time, of course, our understanding has evolved a lot. We have a formal method around how we identify these locations, how we identify such people, how we help them set up the initial team, right? So all that is something that has been formalized over a year. Now, one very good thing that I want to point out is the ability to onboard producers, the suppliers, right, is something we have found is absolutely incredible and efficient when it comes to these local marketplaces, because the people who are running these marketplaces, and it's not just Udupi and Shillong. Now we are there in Meerut, we are there in Tanjavur, we are there in Himavaram, we are there doing in Surat, right? So in more places, right? And in all the places we have seen that because the team by design has local connections, they are very easily able to win the trust of the producers there and get them onboarded. Of course, getting the consumers is slightly more challenging, right? And that is the reason why we are very optimistic about ONDC, and we'll talk about that as well in the due course, right? But yeah, this the finding the entrepreneurs and then ability to very easily onboard suppliers is something I wanted to highlight. Yeah.
Excellent, Ravinder. Now that you mentioned ONDC, let's get a little bit into the technology behind this as well, right? If I remember correctly, eSamudaay was one of the early adopters of the beacon protocol that kind of underlies ONDC. So, also talk to us a little bit of your experience on building the technology behind eSamudaay, which includes Nirmund, which is your headless software foundation. Talk to us about how it all works together, and more specifically, how do you plan or how are you plugging into ONDC and how is that working for you?
So you're right. You know, we were one of the early adopters, early believers on ONDC, and we had when we started working with ONDC. By then, we had a fully functional marketplace technology as part
Right?
of Nirmon, which was already being deployed at multiple places and working well. And then we saw ONDC, and I remember my team participating in the first hackathon that was in January. We participated in the hackathon, and we within almost a week we were able to have a crude integration of ONDC into eSamudaay tech. Of course, that was the first cut, and then from there we started working closely. Initially there were 5 companies who were part of the first cohort, and it took us almost 3 months of time to implement the protocol. The way the tech works is, if you really think about what ONDC is doing, is a protocol to allow communication between different entities about a commerce transaction, right? That is exactly what it is. And you are free to implement it the way you want. For example, you could be using Python or Java or Go. It does not matter. It does not, I mean, so much so that you don't really have to be even on HTTP, it will still work,
Right.
right? So at eSamudaay, we had already built a marketplace. The things like inventory, the things like transactions, the things like logistics was something where we had built all this tech already. And then when we looked at ONDC, we said, hey, now that we have all this, we need to implement ONDC as a communication layer. Very specifically, we implemented all these as adapters into our own code, where we are able to convert the packets back and forth between ONDC format, and transfer them over the protocol, right? And this is how the first version that we implemented with ONDC came about. After that, one thing I want to say for everyone is, when we look at ONDC, we should, at least at this point, and I think for the foreseeable future also, we should not think of ONDC as a protocol that is static, but rather it is something which is moving, right? So the protocol has changed a lot tremendously and for good from the time we implemented the first version of it, right? And this change in protocol is happening both as an enhancement to what is already there. For example, just a simple act of how a transaction happens has evolved a lot, as well as things like adding support for new domains, as well as
Right.
things like adding grievance management. All this is something which is a continuous activity, right? And we continue to put a lot of effort in making sure we are at the cutting edge of implementing all of the ONDC protocol and stay ahead of the curve.
Interesting. And Ravinder, also I'm curious because this is a fairly distributed model that you have, right? In the terms, in the fact that both your buyers, sellers are fairly distributed across the platform. I'm also curious, how do the payments work in this kind of a distributed platform? Do share your insights there as well.
So for eSamudaay, actually things are little not so complicated because we look at a marketplace as an unit, right?
Okay.
So let's say a marketplace running in Udupi has buyers in Udupi, has sellers in Udupi, people are paying, and that money is going to a private limited company that is incorporated in Udupi, and it is going to the bank account of that company. Of course,
Okay.
over time, we had to build all the logic around collection and settlement, etc. But I would say the problem statement there was not so complex. But when it comes to ONDC, yes, I mean, and this is actually from an insider perspective, this is one of the problem statement that everybody, all the network participant and ONDC together is trying to solve. The reconciliation and settlement protocol layer that ONDC has built, and now everybody at this point of time is implementing, is supposed to be a solution for this. But you're absolutely right. When let's say a buyer app like Paytm accepts the payment, and then on the basis of various parameters, and these parameters are order specific, right? So for example, what is the delivery time, is there a return period, what is the settlement period, and all these parameters are at order level. And basis that, the buyer app has to calculate how much to settle,
Right.
when to settle, and then they will settle it to a seller app, and then seller app will have to reconcile all this and then do a downward settlement to individual sellers, right? And all
Right.
this need to work like clockwork every time, because we are talking about onboarding a lot of small sellers, specifically Samuday, right? We are focused on smaller towns, and many of these sellers are first time online sellers. They have not seen the e-commerce, for example, yet, right? And even if there is a delay of one day or few, yeah, one day in settling the money, we will break their trust, and that is not something we want, right? So this needs to work really well like a clockwork every day. And but given that you're right, it's a distributed system. Things have not been so great so far around ONDC, around settlement. But with RSP coming in, I am very hopeful that things will be much better.
That's interesting, Ravinder. Mira, this question is for you, right? I think the million-dollar question that everyone would have in this space is how does your business and revenue model work? How does eSamudaay actually make money?
Okay, that's a good question. eSamurai, I mean, we want to just be a SaaS company, right? In short,
Correct.
but not just a SaaS company, but also a network company. And so the primary objective is, while we have sort of dabbled in operations and did Udupi, did Shillong, and a few other things, just to get the hang of things and test your own product before you give it to the people in the market. The core philosophy is eSamudaay or Nirmun will only provide software as well as network. So
Okay.
software, uh, we act as a TSP or a technology service
Okay.
provider to ONDC, right? So let's talk, since we are saying let's talk eSamudaay and let's talk ONDC with eSamudaay. Okay. No, so as eSamudaay, what we've talked about decentralized marketplaces, and then how the challenges of finding an entrepreneur to actually run that, right? So one of the challenges that we had was it was under the same name and nobody
Right.
wanted to own the brand, right? So what we realize is we'll have to create we have to white label everything, because if you own a brand, nobody is going to do marketing, everybody is going to look to you for marketing, and there is no sense of ownership. If you're saying decentralized, even the name has to be decentralized,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
So now what the the revenue model is, I provide you the software. So now you can choose to host it with us. You can say, I just need the application, but I want you to run the servers and the backend and the data for me. Okay.
Okay.
Or the company or that sort of buys from us or says that, hey, I want the applications white labeled. I want to customize over, and on top of that, I also want my data to. I want to manage my own data. So they take an
Okay.
instance in the whole package, an instance of it, and they start operating by themselves. So we provide the usual, like a revenue model that any software company will have, right? One is the license fee if it is a big enterprise sales, if they want to put everything with themselves, depending on how you want to structure the support, all those usual stuff, right? And second, there will be a fixed subscription revenue that comes when you onboard sellers.
Okay.
So we don't dwell in transaction fee. We don't say give us a cut of your transaction fee. All we say is uh, rupees X per seller. However much transactions you want to do, that's up to you. We are not going to charge a transaction fee. We're going to say uh, rupees X per seller. And if volumes go up, of course, the server cost, data storage cost, all of that go up, then there is that delta that we need to sort of figure out how do we account and get revenue for that, right? But in short, no transaction percentage, just a software license fee as well as a subscription fee.
Pretty interesting, Meta. So if I understand that correctly, what you're typically looking at is in cases where they've decided to take everything from you, it'll be more like a SaaS fee plus some element of managed services. And in other cases where the entity is large enough to be able to manage your own IT ops, in which case you'd probably do a licensed fee kind
Yes,
of arrangement with
yes, yes. And then
them.
also, because we are saying we are a network, right? So
Yeah.
if many of these companies, like for example, the companies like let's say let's take an example of a Sidby, okay, that
Yeah.
onboards sellers, and they don't really want to dwell in the technology, but they want their own product, right? So we
Right.
also provide, while that is not really a revenue stream, but since we claim to be a network company, we are going to say, hey, whatever you need, come to us. We have partners. So over the last 3 years, right, what we have sort of one of the focus we have is build as many partnership as we can.
Right.
So I can always use my network to say, hey, you need creators, I have a list of creators, choose from them. Yeah, you need developers, I have a list of developers, you can choose from them. Because for a company that has no tech understanding, it gets very overwhelming to start figuring out all of that by themselves.
Right. Agreed. Agreed. Meda, what's the traction you've seen so far across the various districts live in? And also, I noticed that from your website, right, you also have some colleges you're live in. So, also talk to us a little bit about that as well.
Okay. So when Ravinder talked about the evolution of eSamudaay, he mentioned community
Right.
campus use case that they've been working with, right? That is called ChangePay. So
Yeah.
so ChangePay decided that they want to use our technology. So they had their own technology before, and then as usual, you understand, college students building not sustainable, right?
Yeah.
So they were the first, if you think about it, the first enterprise that sort of took our software. So they said, hey, we want your software, and we want you to help manage it. We will do the application ourselves. We want you to host it, and we want you to manage all the operation from the technical perspective. We will do the on the ground operations. So those are the campus use case that we have. So where we are saying the closed loop is within the campus.
Right.
Okay, so then we also have the as Ravinder mentioned, the district level marketplaces, right? So I think we have about 30 to 40 um, set up at various stage of setup, and then of some of them, of course, didn't perform very well. Some of them performed very well to beyond our expectations. So that's where Ravinder sort of mentioned the kind of learning we had. What type of team will succeed? What type of team does not really succeed? And what we've realized is it's white label solutions that normally succeed better. Okay, because
Okay.
the guy or the person or the team knows what trying to do. They've already built a loyal consumer base, and it's easy for them to, they're like micro influencers in their community, right? So for
Yeah.
them to launch something new and say, hey, this is what I have, easier. So then ONDC came into the picture, and I think Meerat was one of the uh, life locations that we sort of said, hey, why don't you do a tier 3, tier 4 city with ONDC? And Meerut, as of now, is doing very well because of ONDC. And that's where, I mean, the advantage of ONDC comes, right? Because we all know on an online e-commerce space, customer acquisition is the main, where the majority of the money goes. So with ONDC coming in, then you sort of get, I mean, it becomes easier. Then my entrepreneur that I've chosen can say, hey, I just want to do the seller onboarding, managing seller and logistics. I don't want to do buyer acquisition. I'm happy with ONDC or ONDC participants doing that. I will just do the logistic as well as the seller management. So we've seen a good success with ONDC, especially in cities like Meerut and all.
Understood. Understood. Now, the next question, Meda and Ravinder, is both for both of you, and you can go one by one. Meda, you can cover more from business angle, and then Ravinder from tech angle. From future roadmap perspective, and being more very excited about things that are yet to get launched and added for eSamudaay, what's those two things from business perspective, Meda, and from then Ravinder tech perspective that you're most excited about?
Ravinder, I think you can go first.
So what we have learned over years is in these smaller towns, right? So there are many problems that are very unique to those towns that can be solved digitally, and large platform that already exist are not incentivized enough to solve them at the local level, right? And this is something I am very excited about, and I'll give you an example, right? So very specifically in the town of Udupi, the garbage collection payments are completely manual, right? And in this age, it may be 20 bucks, it may be 15 bucks, but generally people don't carry cash with them, and the guy will come to you, you will say aaj nahi hai bhaiya, come tomorrow, and all, right? The local team at Udupi has been working with the government entity there to try to digitize them. They have given a go ahead to do that. So we will be launching a micro front end, right, which will be very specific to this ODP circle, which will allow the people there to pay digitally for the garbage collection there, right? And when I think about this at scale, and scale for me is not about we build one thing and all the marketplaces everywhere are using it, but for me the scale is about every marketplace trying to solve unique problems that exist for let's say their community. That is something which is super exciting to me, right? So I have a similar thing around bill payments, right? So there are a lot of local bill payments that are happening. There are a lot of local chits that are going on, jewelers asking for monthly deposit, which they will 11th month later give you back as gold and stuff like that, right? And the local communities, these local marketplaces are coming up with innovative ideas saying, hey, can this be made, can this be solved digitally? And if they do, the local community will of course be helped. And I find all this very interesting because one, this is unique, nobody is doing it, and at the same time I think nobody can do it as well. When I say nobody, the large platform that already exists, I don't see how they can solve these unique local problem that exist for individual smaller communities, and this is something that I am super excited about.
So from the business perspective, right? So while we already have the software and we're ready to go, now comes how, where do we get the people, the companies or the enterprises to take up the challenge? So with where we are seeing is with the kind of push that ONDC is putting across sectors, across domains. Everybody wants to get into the ONDC bandwagon, right? It's better to be prepared
Mhm.
because this might become the next big thing. But they're not really, and most of them are not tech company. They are a group of producers, or they are aggregators, which are not. So for them, if we sort of help them with technology, saying that, hey, we all know, right? ONDC from the seller perspective says that either you can come in as a marketplace, or you can come as an inventory or an individual seller sort of program, right? So now, even the understanding of what does it mean to be a marketplace or an MSN, they call it a marketplace seller node, or an ISN, inventory seller node, that level of understanding is also not there. And then there's a hype, right, that now I get into ONDC, then, but what is the reality? What is the kind of difficulty it takes to get onboarded, and what kind of traction do I expect. And we all know that if there is lots of hype, and then if things don't really pick up, people lose interest. So
Right.
what we see is we not only provide the technology, but because we've also been we have made our hands dirty with the actual operations, we are able to provide a little more of a ground reality. Ki, how much does it take to digitize a seller? Hey, I have a network of entrepreneurs that are sitting in a village here, and they can go and help you digitize your sellers. I know photographs are really important, but sending somebody from Bangalore to go and take photographs in Chhattisgarh doesn't make sense. So since I have a local guy, he knows some local people who will be able to do it better. And so, because we have this unique combination of network as well as software, we want to be able to provide value added services and not just technology to these people who are looking out to say, how do I get onboarded, what are the next steps for me. And then and also from the business side, right, what we want to do is we want to abstract, like ONDC, as Ravinder mentioned, keeps
Mhm.
changing, right? It's an evolving giant. Today it is something else, tomorrow it's delta plus 10. And so if individual people come and build on their own, overwhelming for them. Do I do the operations? Do I actually onboard sellers? Or do I keep changing the technology? So what eSamudaay says is, hey, I'll abstract you for most of the complications. Only when I really need you to change, I will tell you to change. Otherwise, I will do the logic within myself. So there is a sort
Mm.
of simplification factor that we have brought in, so that will help these people actually do the business that they want, and not just get overwhelmed with constant changes. So from that
Got
is
it.
from the perspective.
Got it. Got it. So very interesting, Medha and Ravinder. It was amazing speaking to you. And Medha, in case our listeners want to reach out to eSamudaay, what would be the best way for them to contact eSamudaay?
You could just mail us, or you can just call any one of us. I think Ravinder, from the ONDC's perspective, you can call me, you can call Anup. Anup is very active, very willing to listen to anybody. And I think I would, Ravinder, do you want to share your email ID?
Yeah, I can be reached at Mahori, Mahori at esamudaay.com. I also actively try to write on LinkedIn about ONDC and other things that I'm interested in. People can connect me with me on LinkedIn, and I would definitely love to respond back.
That's awesome. So, Ravinder, what we'll do is we'll take those details and we'll add those details to our show notes. Thanks once again, both of you, for coming on the show and spending time with us.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Fantastic. So that's it from India FinTech Diaries for this week. Do log on to our website, indiafintechdiaries.com, for exclusive content. And until next time, mask on and stay safe.